Turkish Cargo. Gold sponsor Samsara Group and Etihad Cargo. Lanyard sponsor GW Ventures. Lounge sponsor Adani Airport Holdings. And our badge sponsor SLS Group. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to play a short AV for Continental Carriers Air Freight Station. Can we have the AV, please?
Continental Carriers is in service to the country since 1957 in the field of freight forwarding and have seen many special projects, achievements, milestones and innovation in freight forwarding. With our 17 self-owned offices across India, we are well equipped to combat any crisis during this unprecedented outbreak of COVID-19. Continental Carriers team was the first logistics company to start delivering shipment in April 2020. And provided 24/7 consistent services to pharma and healthcare industry and transported PPE kits, oximeters, oxygen concentrators, charters carrying oxygen tanks and raw material for oxygen.
In March 2020, when COVID first wave came into India, we were asked by the Ministry of Commerce and Ministry of Civil Aviation to come forward and start helping the trade because everything was at standstill. We helped all the exporters, importers whose goods were stuck to bring into India for especially these PP kits, oximeters, zeolite, which is used for making oxygens. We help each and every customer who asked us to make sure that their goods reach in time so that they can save the lives of people.
Civil aviation side, challenges on the equipment side, equipment availability. As you know, global markets have turned towards the charter market, so there was lack of availability of equipment. So we really had to manage that. There was pandemic affecting origin, so there was lack of shortage of labor, shortage of material handling equipment, no cranes available. All these elements were putting the entire mission at risk.
The Hope Foundation, based out of Ireland, having its subsidiary in Kolkata, was setting up a 100-bed hospital during the second wave of the COVID pandemic in India. And while we believe that PPEs, kits, masks, and other oxygen essential equipments are readily available in India, we were approached by Jenkinson Logistics in Ireland to bring all these goods into India for free of cost. Today, the hospital that they set up is ready to commence its operations and is on its way to save lives in India.
We all going through an unprecedented time.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was a video for Continental Carriers Air Freight Station. Ladies and gentlemen, we now shift our focus on the pivotal role India plays globally, empowering India's role as the pharmacy of the world with resilient logistics. The growth of Indian pharmaceutical industry is not merely by chance. It is reinforced by a robust and resilient supply chain network, ensuring the safe, efficient, and timely delivery of the pharmaceuticals. Today's session provides a comprehensive overview of the pharmaceutical logistics, offering insights that support India's rightful place as a pharmacy of the world. And for that, once again, I would like to invite on stage our moderator for this session, Mr. Satish Lakkaraju, Senior Vice President, West Freight. He started his professional journey with the industry 32 years ago with TNT Skypark and has evolved to become an experienced sales and commercial head with a demonstrated history of working in the logistics and supply chain industry. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Mr. Satish Lakkaraju. Next, I would like to invite on stage Mr. S. Burak Omeroglu, Vice President, Cargo Sales, Middle East and South Asia, Turkish Airlines. With a career starting at Turkish Airlines in 2009, He's now the dynamic vice president for the Middle East and South Asia. His journey showcases expertise in logistics and leadership across diverse regions. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it from Mr. S. Burak. Moving on to our next speaker for today, may I please call on stage Mr. Weber Vora, Managing Director, Continental Carriers. With nearly 2 decades of expertise in international supply chain management, he's not only a strategic leader but also the chairman of the Logistics and Maritime Committee at the Indo-French Chamber of Commerce. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, you're for Mr. Weber Vora. Welcome, sir. Next, I would like to call our next speaker on stage, Mr. Peter Musola, Head Cargo Commercial, Kenya Airways. Bringing over 23 years of aviation expertise, he is the driving force behind Kenya Airways Cargo's commercial delivery. He's a visionary leader shaping the industry. Welcome, Mr. Peter. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for him, please. Next, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Srinivas Rao Nandigam, Global Head of Supply Chain, Sun Pharma. He's the powerhouse beyond Sun Pharmaceutical Industries' global supply chain. He gets recruitment, demand planning, supply strategy, and more, bringing over 2 decades of expertise from Unilever and Reckitt Benckiser. Ladies and gentlemen, a big round of applause for Mr. Srinivas. And our last speaker for today, ladies and gentlemen, for this panel discussion, I would like to call on stage Mr. Bharat Bhushan Rathi, Head Distribution and Logistics, Mankind Pharma. With 16 years of expertise in logistics, distribution, and supply chain, he's a driving force behind innovative practices and major cost saving. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it from Mr. Bharat Bhushan. Have a wonderful panel discussion, everyone. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Once again, a very good afternoon. You must be surprised that I'm back on the stage again, but Ryan, who was to do this session, is stuck in the US, who's again a good friend of mine. But trust me, this topic has been very close to me, and everyone on the stage here, fortunately, I've done sessions with them at some point of time, or I have met something. So my life becomes a little more easy of knowing them personally as well as professionally. But why is this topic so important for all of us to even keep discussing? And we see we've got fellow friends from the other part of the world also who are here. We've got Burak, who's from Turkish. We've got Peter, who's come from Kenya as well. And I was telling him that that country is close to my heart, and I give you a little more on it. But I think India played such an important role during the pandemic that we now have forgotten those 2 years nightmares that we went through. But I think a lot of people lost their lives, but we've also been fortunate that we have been able to do that. But why are we discussing this topic, and why are we doing is that probably that's not the only pandemic that came in before, but this was more severe in terms of what it really did to the world. And the supply chain industry stood together. I think a big kudos to all of us and everyone on the stage who has contributed not only, and the India did the Maitri program, in which India made sure that vaccines reached to remote countries as well. So we have fortunately 2 people who are from the manufacturing side, where Bharat Rathi and Srinivas Rao Garu, who's on the stage. And then we've got Burak and Peter, who come from the airline industry. And I and Vaibhav wear the caps of being the service provider. So it's very balanced in that sense of probably having the right mix of people. One aspect that I will do is probably run through first from Burak clearly. And my question to you, Burak, would be is that today, when we spoke in the previous session, the way the LCL product operates to the way the air product operates, you operate through a hub. And the importance of the hub goes without saying, because either it could be a worst experience as far as the hub is concerned, or it could be an experience where it's a seamless operations. Maybe you want to throw a little more light on how Turkish as a carrier really operates from an hub standpoint of view, for the audience to clearly know is that how does the hub thing happen, and more so with your new airport to the old airport and rest of them. And this happened clearly during the pandemic as well, and I've been a witness to it. So maybe you want to throw some light on it.
First of all, thank you very much for giving me the chance to be here together with you. Just like you said, we operate in our big hub in Istanbul, and we are reaching to over 120 countries. Supply chain, especially when it comes to pharmaceuticals, it's a process end to end, of course, but hub is critically important. We can easily say that it's a must to have a strong enough hub operations for any airline in the world in order to provide an adequate level of service to your customers. What we have done so far, you mentioned a little bit, we have a quite young facility in Istanbul together with the new airport. It's less than 2 years old now. It's new, but it's now completely functioning, and it's one of the biggest hubs in the world. And in terms of pharma handling, in terms of cold storages, it's one of the biggest and most capable hubs in the world. I can easily say this. On top of this, we have a big team who is dealing with special products, including pharmaceuticals. And just recently we launched new products to support our hub operations and provide a much better service all around the world. So we'll speak more, and hopefully I will give more details on the way. Thank you.
Perfect. I'll come back to you with a lot more questions as we go. But let me go to Viber quickly, because they played the video about the air freight station. And the reason that I'm coming to you on this specific topic is that the CFSs and the ICDs licenses in today's world have been given much faster. But for an AFS, probably you're the first AFS to happen. Why did government need so many years to sanction an AFS, and what is the learning that you can probably share for everyone to understand that the AFSs can bring on for all of us to really learn?
So, Satish, I think in my opinion, anything new becomes a challenge. There's a threat or there is a fear of what that will bring. And if you remember, and this is when the ICDs and the first private ports started in the 90s, and CFS, it was a big battle. You know, independent India, 40 years in, still government-run ports, and highly inefficient. And then you have a private seaport that comes up, and then you have healthy competition between private and government. And now you look at the efficiencies on the ports. And this has been our argument consistently on the airport side as well. You see, private player or private entry into any area has always brought about efficiencies which have eventually been translated to better business. And when it came to the air freight station, I think there's a mystery. There's always a threat of what if this happens or what if something else happens. I mean, anything can happen. You know, unfortunately, you had an incident at the parliament yesterday. So security is an issue that could happen at the parliament with the most senior people in the country. So if security was a threat that was put aside, we have proof to say that the air freight station is a concept has been in place with the Western world for over 2 or 3 decades. In fact, I was having a conversation with Peter earlier today. Kenya has had this in practice for the last 10 years. So off-airport handling is something that we've been saying is a concept which is tried, tested, and in practice across the globe, and it should have been allowed here. So what was necessary was the machinery. There was the issue of where does this come in? And we face this as an industry regularly, is that we're so multidisciplinary in nature. We didn't have a MIBAP, as they would say, in the government. You know, does it come under civil aviation? Does it come under commerce? Does it come under finance for customs? Does it come under home for safety, security? So I think that was the biggest area where who would bell the cat? You know, which entity would take this as their project to push this forward. So while we were pursuing this with the Ministry of Civil Aviation, we had to consistently pursue this with everyone. I mean, ironically, I would look back and have a good laugh about it, is that I would have, when the process was initiated with the interministerial committee, we had to get an NOC from Railways because they thought it's the same concept as a CFS. So, you know, the irony of it was there's nothing to do with the rail, but they would have to give an NOC. So conceptually, I think the openness in the ecosystem to bring a concept like this was missing. And obviously what was needed was an Indian player to take this on. And, you know, as India is now a different India of what it used to be, you know, 10, 20 years ago, so is Indian companies. And we're proud to say that we got the confidence to say, you know what, we're going to pioneer this. There's going to be a sunk cost or there's going to be a timeline around it, which we held on to, which we're still holding on to say that it's an investment in the future. So that from the government's eyes, I understand they need an Indian champion to champion it out. And once it was done, I think slowly and steadily, they took logic of reason. And obviously incumbents had their own viewpoints. But I think eventually everyone will prosper because more cargo, cheaper cost of supply chain handling in India will lead to better and more cargo opportunities and more business for all of us, which will eventually pour through the airports itself.
Oh, great. So probably I'll, you know, get a little more context and give you a little more things when we speak later. But let me get to Peter. Welcome to India, Peter. And incidentally, like I told you, I met your president only 2 days ago, and I've never seen a better salesman. I thought Modi was the best salesperson to sell the country, but your president really put us flat in terms of what he offered, and we had ministers attending to each one of us to say that come tomorrow and the red carpet will be put. And to tell to Mr. Srinivas Rao, Dr. Reddy said that we are going to come into Kenya and start our operations there and then. So I think you're fortunate that your country probably is not as big as India in terms of the size, but you've got a brilliant president who can really turn it around. So my question to you is that Africa is a larger thing than Europe in terms of the size. I've lived in Africa myself. My family is still in Kenya. What is that Kenya can offer to the Indian pharmaceutical industry to cater as an airline, because the curiosity of connections to South Sudan or to a landlocked country concerned. Probably you can throw more for us to understand the whole operation.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, Satish, for the question. KQ is very well positioned in terms of the needs for a continent. First of all, Kenya is right in the middle of the continent. Now, in respect to the topic of the day, you realize that Africa really suffers a lot in terms of the disease burden. If you look at the global statistics, we actually are in the upper 70s in terms of the mortality rates around major diseases. And this is really worrisome for the continent. Now, from a KQ perspective, it's really in our mission to contribute to the sustainable development of Africa, and in respect to pharma, which is SDG number 3 for the United Nations, you know, providing good health and well-being for all citizens by 2030. We are really responding to the needs of the continent. As a matter of fact, in 2023, Kenya Airways was awarded the Certificate of Excellence by independent validators for IATA for handling of pharma. So we are fully certified by IATA. And the beauty in this is that we are now able to offer solutions. Now, the good connection with India is that about 19% of all the farmer that is produced in India ends up in Africa. And this is a big opportunity for airlines. And I'm just privileged to announce to the plenary that from 15th of January, Kenya Airways will be bringing a 737-800 freighter into Mumbai. Oh, thank you for the clap. Yeah, so, and really this is connecting the need in the continent with solutions. And really we are so excited to be right in the middle of this dispensation.
Great, Peter. Thank you for announcing in this panel. So at least I have the privilege of hosting the show where you announced it. But like I said, Sanjeev, who's part of the Kenyan Astral Aviation, also has done tremendously well in terms of his connectivity with India. And only difference between both the countries basically is the sea that is separating us. In between we have nothing else. But your Ministry of Civil Aviation probably is one of the most proactive in terms of the drone approvals that it gave faster than what India gave, which again is very unique, which probably many people would not know. But I'll come back to you, but let me go to now Mr. Srinivas Rao for more. What is the expectation? We've come a long way in the industry. You've been speaking on various forums, but what do you think can make it more resilient in terms of taking it to the next level? Because even now, while we're speaking so many good things, but there's still a lot more complexities that exist in the supply chain in many ways, and you are no exception to it. Probably you want to give us a little more insight on what the industry should be doing, or what is your expectation out of all of us?
Thank you, Satish, for the question. Am I audible? Yeah. So honestly, I want to set a little bit of context. Everybody says that India is the pharmacy for the whole globe, and Peter just mentioned that about 80% of the drugs which are sold in Africa are manufactured in India. 40% of the drugs which are sold, more than 40% of the drugs.
Provider gives shipment to airport authorities, and airport authorities further ruled by security systems and all. So there is a blackout period. It's not a real-time kind of transparent system that we are looking for. There are costly medicines, and apart from cost, it's a life-saving drug if we are dealing in. And when we are dealing in, so in such an important drug, it's important that its efficacy remains the same. Whatever we are committing to customer, it should be delivered intact in that condition only. Most of the time, we came to know that there is a breach of environment after all is gone. Okay, probably after 10 hours, after 12 hours. What we are saying is there should be a system wherein we can have at least a transparent system that the shipper should know at least whenever there is a trigger in any transaction, there is a trigger in any damage. This is the number one ask that we want, at least in domestic, to start with. And in the previous session, as there is a discussion of LCL, more transparent systems and all. See, the main issue lies in the first mile and the last mile. And the issue is because of the consolidation of loads. Because even the service provider wants that it should be consolidated. If I want a box to be delivered from A to B, then first mile and last mile is a challenge. And if it's not a challenge, then they are selling us the Rolls Royce. So we want a solution. See, you cannot charge a customer for your inefficiencies. So what we want, an efficient system, a reliable system, so that whatever we are claiming on label, it will be delivered. So that's it.
No, Bharat, I think you brought out some pertinent points which I will further bring them to you to also elaborate.
Satish, if I may chime in, you know, what you said is 100% correct, that, you know, the battle of actually navigating within the airport and actually to get to the airport also many times is, and you know, I'm reminded I was actually exporting a shipment of close to $100 million, and it was a very high value dense shipment, only 10 pallets, $100 million, yeah? Now, obviously, yes, there is insurance protocols and there's the whole 9 yards which goes around it, and the CCTV cameras and the WhatsApp video calls. There was a traffic jam in between, and you know, your heart starts pounding up, saying that we don't know what is going to happen to this £100 million, $100 million shipment. So infrastructure, while there is a lot which has been done in the country, my expectation from the government is to do a lot more in the next 5 to 10 years. Yeah, that's the other ask.
No, brilliant. I'll tell you why is that some of you would know that narcotics has a certain provisions exactly to do. And we were shipping this on a consistent basis in Chennai for a particular customer by ocean where we followed. But it's like a typical Telugu movie where the villains come in the lungi, put the gun on the head of the driver, and then 4 hours later the container goes missing. So now you may have CCTV cameras, you may have, but even you do a route validation and a route mapping, we have experienced it in today's world where, okay, we've put the IoT device and we could track the guys. But there are still challenges, and then I'll come back to Peter because Africa for some of us is a dark area in the logistics, even internet working in terms of it, and sometimes containers go. But let me come to Burak. One, you are coming back to India every month almost, I would guess. You are there in every show, and I can see a whole lot of people from there. You have a stall here. How big is India becoming for you from a standpoint of both pharma and logistics? Because there must be something right in this Indian market for you all to deploy not only so much capacity. And every time we call you, Halit tells me, buy space is tight. So I know Halit is around somewhere, but how important is India for you as a market now?
Short answer is extremely important. I have a full trust in the country's future. I'm very clear about this. I think India is also placing itself at the forefront in many means. So they have the understanding, they understand that the future and the prospects for the country is very bright, and they are in a good position to do so. So from our point of view, we already started our operations years back, and we kept growing, and we want to continue doing so. This is a strategic market for us, a market that we have to be present. And in order to be a strong player here, we are trying to understand your needs better. We are trying to invest in all our operations, IT infrastructure and everything, so that we can be the carrier of choice. So India, in the coming years, together with this China Plus One initiative, it already started. I mean, a lot of factories are coming in, you know, the manufacturing is improving. So the future is clearly bright. So it's very, very important for us, and we want to keep one of the main big players here. That's very clear. Just maybe on a separate note, I would like to congratulate you as well. What Continental has done is quite important. I understand what he says. Maybe implementing a new initiative can be difficult, but what I'm trying to say is that I think things will get better and better. Things will be quicker. Just like the developments we see in IT or new technologies, things are getting faster. And what I mean by saying India is aware of the strengths it has, I think all such struggles will be much easier. And the best practices all around the world are there. You implement it very well. I wish you all good luck. And I think this is one initiative that needs to be improved for the industry to function better. So congratulations and thank you. India, very important.
Thank you for that. That gives us a confidence that one of the largest carriers in the world in terms of the number of destinations is looking at India, which is good for us. And the good news for you is that we have more people in Area 1 in North America than we probably have in any other part. Srinivas Rao Garu knows that the number of US FDA units in this country are far more than what they are in any other part of the world. So I think in that sense, India is strategic for the life sciences, pharma, vaccine, and the rest of them. And you are absolutely right in saying doing it first is very difficult. Why I'm saying this is when the first active and passive container had to come into this country, I faced the brunt of it in terms of getting a product like Vacutech into this country. I had to run pillar to post to tell them what is a continuity bond to a single bond. But after that, now today you have C-Safe, you have Docash, you have everyone Tower Cold Chain, and I just signed a few more contracts with other new products. Because once you get the first file through, then Indian customs has a true name. If you did not know what is customs in Telugu and Sanskrit, it is difficult. It's a difficult man in terms of it. So they took to it clearly, and today that difficulty is over. So now let me get to Vaibhav in terms of it, now that you really got in terms of getting the AFS station. Both from a pharma angle standpoint of view, what is that the industry can do to really help the pharma industry? Because someone like Mrs. Bharat or Srinivas Rao want to really use an AFS. Why I'm bringing this to you is that can they look at really either using or building their own AFSs, because you have the expertise. They can build their pallets. They can hand it over to a carrier like Burak and saying, here's a pallet ready, and you just carry it. Because you've done everything in their own plant, so you're bringing the overall cost. They just have a capex cost. Is this a forward-thinking thought from a different, I'm bringing it from a different angle altogether. If someone has got over 200 tons, 300 tons going by air and ocean every month, he doesn't need to stand in a queue really, because the carrier then has visibility of bringing the cargo right on time and not going through a battle of saying, oh, there are no loaders or there is rain somewhere and I don't know whether the piece is missing or not. Is that a forward-thinking thought?
I mean, look, at the end of this, it boils down to commerce and, putting up a Camex, and you've seen this, right? When I say, again, I'm making a comparable to the ocean freight side. You see the Apollos have got their CFSs because they've got the container loads. What you need to look at is, in your particular question, would be if you have reverse loads, because bringing back airline pallets, empty trucks on the back end would also play a role, because as the AFS concept goes, so let me say from a concept of international, what happens is today, India is, 270 airports built during World War II. And as you see from the vision and mission of the Ministry of Civil Aviation, they want to unlock each and every airport, because today all sits in the defense budget, and eventually they want to translate this to the states who can then improve connectivity. One job in aviation is to 6 jobs in other industries. So you're seeing domestic connectivity increase. What you're seeing is now international connectivity go into hinterland airports. So tomorrow, to compete with the Bombay and Ahmedabad, if somebody wants to start international into Surat, it's an option, right? And that is much easier said, because that's going to be on the behest of passengers. You will have immigration, you will have ATC already there. Immigration would be there, but you'll see customs for passenger will be there, but for cargo, to get a cold storage facility, to get all the other infrastructure and the concessions, it's a very expensive cost for the government. And you see this with every airport they have built. All these facilities cost a lot of money, because when the government does it, it is always going to cost more. I mean, we've all studied economics, the nature of government spending is to bring a lot more money into the economy, which eventually leads to better economic growth, and therefore they cannot do it cheap and efficient, which a private player can do. So when we start building hinterland connectivity across India, we are allowing domestic air cargo to get off-airport screened, off-airport built, and ready for carriage, which means it can now tap into all the unutilized capacity that is going to be coming into India. So if you start having international flights, Lucknow, for example, is an international gateway. You have 2 or 3 international flights coming in. Now that doesn't necessarily need an APIDA or a cold storage facility. If you have an AFS in the catchment that has this facility available, your factories in the area can come in and hand over the cargo over there. I mean, our larger established players like Sun and all are already moving this cargo from, say, Goa to Delhi airport or Bombay airport because they can. But I'm talking about the SMEs, because the larger players will always be there, but the growth engine is the SMEs. They need it closer to home. They need it somewhere where they can understand and then organically grow from one facility to the next to the next. So as these off-airport facilities come up, they are going to really accelerate the supply chain element for all these organizations. And when I say this, both for the outbound and the inbound, because eventually we are in a global supply chain, and while we talk about India being China +1, there will always be a dependency on the inbound. So it's closer to home. You clear your cargo and you get your cargo and you're ready to put it into manufacturing.
No. So just to give you a little more insight before I go to Peter, is that 52% of Indian pharma air freight happens through the western airports, which is a combination. 81% of ocean containers of this country, including a container from Visakhapatnam to US, comes to Nhava Sheva to go. Now this is the thing. In this congestion, why is Peter looking at Kenya and Airways coming to Bombay? Why not to a Goa? Just for, Goa is a good place to go for a holiday. You got traffic here in Bombay, you would have seen how difficult it is to get into the center. My question to all the international carriers is that the manufacturing hubs are not going to come anymore in Bombay, because Bombay doesn't have the land, and if logistics can't afford a 60 crores per acre land today, even in Hyderabad or sort of a location. Is you as a carrier looking at any point of time to getting to smaller destinations, because Indian population is no more restricted to the tier 1 cities clearly, because the 737 is not such a costly proportion against a 747, because you can still load, and someone like Sun Pharma can easily put a 20-ton cargo without any difficulty into your hub. So is this a thought that you all are looking at?
Certainly, we are looking at multiple destinations. Actually, in terms of a strategy, Mumbai is just the entry point of these operations, and our teams are actually doing a lot of modeling around the other airports, and I can guarantee you we're coming there. There are, however, a number of dynamics that an airline will have to consider. You have to look at bi-directional demand, because the bottom line is your unit cost.
Correct.
Yeah, what does this, I know my colleague mentioned a lot of handling efficiencies, but that's not the only parameter that you will consider. Penultimately, it has the route economics need to make sense. And I know a lot of countries, a lot of airports globally have even been giving airlines concessions and incentives to fly into some of these secondary airports. But on the Africa side of things, and you had raised some concerns about shipments going into lacuna, and Africa has a couple of unique problems in terms of stemming from aeropolitical, geopolitical. At the moment, from the political dimension, the African Union is actually opening borders, so the connectivity within the continent is being unlocked. And this is one area where Kenya Airways is really looking at enhancing the regional connectivity. We have a situation at the moment where there are a number of wars in the continent. And going back to the route economics, we're talking of Sudan. Sudan is quite a huge territory within the continent. A lot of airlines are having to take a lot of detours. There's a major opportunity for pharma within Sudan at the moment, but only one airport is accessible. And I mean, you look at the route economics, the insurance underwriters are charging for a Boeing 737 insurance premium of about $80,000 for a 737. So there are a lot of complexities in terms of determining your routings and everything. But we are very focused in terms of we see really India as really a major source market for Africa. Also in terms of the route economics from our Nairobi hub relative to the Far East makes more sense. So we'll be focusing more in this territory over the coming 2 years. Yeah.
Thanks, Peter. But I think the reason that I brought up this question is that, and in the initial remarks also I said that visibility was always an issue for us in Africa. And I tell you a small incident that happened many years ago when we sent a trophy for a soccer match in Kenya from a place in UP called Meerut. And then the customer asked us, has it been delivered? And then we went to the website and the website did not show anything because internet was not at the best of it. And he was screaming and yelling. And finally, on one of the news channel, we saw the trophy. And we said, yeah, the shipment is delivered, it's good. And I think from there to where today Africa has come, it's come a long way, I have to admit. And I understand the nitty-gritties of Morocco being very different in Africa to Cape Town being very different. The South Sudan incident that you mentioned, I have experienced it recently when from Brazil we were flying cargo to India, but we couldn't fly over the skies of South Sudan, so we went into Europe and bought it here. And the customer said, why has the cost gone up so high? And I had to exactly explain to him the thing, and now I'm struggling for Tel Aviv at 700 rupees a kilo and I can't get space. So I think we understand it now much better with it, but thanks for bringing out this part of it. And I think for someone like Mr. Srinivas, now you understand our challenges is that at 2 rupees and 3 rupees, sometimes our challenges are far more in terms of the geopolitical situation. And I don't blame anyone, but because there are certain things that we are not able to control both on the ground. And for many of you all to understand, at least someone like Vaibhav owns in CFS. But 90% of the freight forwarders don't own anything except a laptop and the tongue. You know, so our problem is that we promise something which is linked to 56 other people. But you trust us, and I think there the trust factor that we spoke in the earlier session is brilliantly there. Probably you can bring out in terms of clearly this is that what is that you are looking from a logistical standpoint of it for more air cargo to be uplifted, because one of the challenges that we see today is that you all are migrating from air to ocean. In sense, when pharma started, 80% was air and 20% was ocean. But today when I take out data from various sources, 80% is ocean, and we are only restricted to the 228, the active and passives and the vaccines. Is there any message that you want to give these two people on the dais who are from the airline industry? Is that some expectation on consistency and the rest of them so that we can work around it?
So I think it's a very important point which you bring in. When the pharma industry started, you know, we were very busy manufacturing and exporting goods, making a lot of money. The money got squeezed. We started finding where can we squeeze. And obviously, yes, every leg. This is not the only place. But I must also say that, you know, while only 20% of the cargo goes by air, the amount of money we spend, if you look at the dollar value we spend by air, will not be less than 80%. Yeah. So you know, still, Okay. So to come to the specific question of what you want from what I want or what the industry would want from, let's say, the carriers or the CFSs or let's say the service providers, is to have a consistency in service. Okay, because I do not want to take, and this is more from the service provider, to take a booking and it actually doesn't get onto the flight. Number one, if we can have more, especially for companies which are large like ours, tripartite agreements where there is a carrier, there is a service provider, and also let's say the companies who are actually using those services, it will bring a lot more confidence. And the confidence bit which you spoke about, Satish, is there. But if you really want to up the game there, bring the carriers into the discussion. And trust me, the trust level will go up multifold, not by an incremental level, especially for very large customers. It makes a big deal of difference when the carrier is sitting there. Yeah. And today I see a lot of pharma industry does a lot of spot buying. Now, from the industry's point of view, from the other side, when I'm saying industry, the carrier's point of view or the service provider's point of view, I would prefer you guys to come and give me a contract which is long, at least, when I say long, at least a quarter, if not two, if not full year. I come from a consumer industry. Believe me, we used to float yearly contracts, and we never looked up and opened up those contracts. Carriers were very happy. They were working on a cost plus basis. They get the base load and blah, blah, blah. So I am saying bring that element of consistency and service levels, and the trust will automatically go up.
No, great. I think...
just to add on, sorry.
Go ahead, Bharat, you can jump in, no problem.
Okay. See, what I'm saying is a different school of thought. See, geopolitical situations were there 40 years back, today also, and they will not be eliminated even 20 years after also. So it will remain still. That's why you guys are into specialization, and this is the business of yours. Okay. You cannot come to the manufacturer who is giving you the load कि सर अब मैं क्या करूँ, अब तो ऐसा हो गया, because at that time we are expecting a solution, and it should not be on a gunpoint kind of कि सर अब तो इतना ज़्यादा देना पड़ेगा, because as Srini said that we have an agreement for an year. So when it goes down, we never goes to you कि now अभी कम हो गया तो आप हमें वापस कर दो. It means, see, it's a trust game. See, it should not be an arm twisting ki whenever we are sitting on table, so I want to have a 2 rupees and you want to have a 2 rupees from my pocket. So it should be a partnership model kind of a thing where we both are partners. And at the same time, when we are both partners, we should be transparent enough and we should trust each other. So this is the thing that I want to do.
No, not 1%, but 100% I am with it, is that if I am in business, I want visibility and consistent cost at the start of the year, which should last for at least 6 months. I'm completely with it, and this is something which I have driven it across my 30 years saying, is that you don't marry short term. Okay, and you marry unconditionally and not with conditions at all. So I'm clearly to that aspect that if someone likes it or not, I am very clear is that you go into it together with a carrier, give you the required space with a clear volume and say this is it. So I think the message is very clear and loud that if you want resilient logistics and consistent, do long term, sit with your partner and discuss this. There's no way going back on it, and if you go back, then you're out of this business for clear and you don't come back to it. Because if you work with companies like GE and rest of them, that's how the contracts are. And I remember that we used to lose on 1 year 2 crores, but there was no going back because you know that if you're out of the business. So I think, Bharat, good point brought is that if you are in business, this is how it works. There's peaks and lows will be there. But I think then you work with the carriers and also tell them that, look, I'm committing this part of it. I think you brought out a very important aspect is that then your pharma cost also can't fluctuate, that one day you sell at an X price and you can't sell at it. So maybe Peter is curious enough to answer that.
Yeah, I think overally the airlines, I believe, are honoring these contractual obligations, and I know Burak will support me that in these specific discussions, we do provisions for force majeure. So the really the only exceptions that will tilt the knob are very unusual situations. And I mean, over the last, we saw that with COVID, we saw that with, normally at that point, then we'll be very transparent with you. And I hope that does not affect our trust meter. Yeah?
Go ahead, Burak.
I think there is not one single solution for all sorts of shipments. I can understand that for certain businesses, there may be a need for a longer term relationship, which is very fine. From an airline's point of view, these can be the base loads that will support also our business. But on the other hand, not only from an airline's perspective, but from both ends, there may be also some requirements for shorter term relationships. So this must be a mutual understanding, and as long as we are on the same page and we are willing to collaborate, I think the solution is there. So to the most part, I agree with you, I understand you, and it's more than welcome.
I had something to add here. I mean, I know from this marriage that comes in, we become somewhat of the broker between the marriage between the airlines and the customer. And one key element here from a request from the customer side comes in is that do we have predictability and visibility and accuracy of when the cargo will be ready? I mean, there is 50 tons a month, for example. On what day will it be 10 pallets, 20 pallets, 30 pallets? Because when you get into the blocks, and that's an airline, I mean, I speak in the middle because it's the bridge. There is a cargo that is going to be left out to carry this cargo. So that visibility, even a visibility on the long-term play, because to get that, to protect against the high and to the offset against the low, because if there is a low, somebody has to pay for that capacity that has been introduced into the network to manage this.
That's a very important point, Vaibhav, which you bring in. As manufacturers, we also need to give visibility to the carriers, to the service providers. And without that, you cannot plan your loads and you cannot plan your facilities to be actually filled up. I fully take that. Trust me, I actually come into the pharma industry only about 6 years. Yeah, I come from a consumer industry where the price variations are not as high as this, and the long-term tenacity of the contracts and everything is so high that I used to do only yearly contracts for all my transportation. It used to be a global tender when I was to work for Reckitt or for this. And you would never open it. All you do is operations. And we would give, we would have, let's say, on a route, not one carrier or not one service provider, but two carriers and two service providers. One is a backup, the other is this. And we would do a, let's say, typical rule, which I would use is L1, L2, L3, giving, 80, 15, 5 as the volume ratio also. So these are very standard things which a lot of other industries do. Pharma needs to catch up, and I take that point.
And just to add on, here comes the role of technology. So there are so many solutions available as far as planning is concerned for them. And now pharma is gearing up with all said and done from FMCG only. And I think gone are the days when we don't have the visibility whenever that sample will pass, whenever that batch will ready. But it's now very much predictable. I think 90% accuracy with the 90% accuracy that we are into. And yes, it's right that it should be a transparent flow of information to both the parties. Yes.
Thank you, guys. I think, but why transparency, trust is coming and teamwork is coming? My typical joke has always been is that we trust the medicine, that white capsule or white medicine, and we consume it and we think that tomorrow will be okay. But when a service provider tells a pharma company that trust us, there's a lot of hesitation. And I'm being very vocal about it because now that I've been 32 years, I think I have some bit of a right that I've dealt with, including Reckitt, where the negotiations are really tough. Last week I was with the Budapest guys as well. I know they're ruthless in terms of the thing. But the trust factor on the ocean contracts is far higher than the air contracts, surprisingly. Since I signed 10 to 15,000 containers contracts into the US, that's something which probably the air can get to know, because there is a large disconnect today, unfortunately, between the ocean carriers and the air carriers. They don't talk so much. But I think that is something which we can facilitate for them to understand. So I think great insights, great learning for me. Both carriers bought out. I think Peter also bought on as much as Burak gave in his inputs that we are open. You bought on the aspect of underwriting insurances. I think we also have contracts and insurance covers now, fortunately. That's the message that I would like to give, and I can see the MC already standing up and Ayushi saying you are between the lunch, and I can see a lady raising her hand for a question. Okay, fine. So we give you the mic to her. Madam, whoever, just tell your name, your organization, and to whom this question is.
Hi, my name is Ranjini. So I'm actually a student. I'm just starting off my career in supply chain and transportation. My question is to Mr. Burak. I've always been interested in the mathematical side of supply chain, like Lean Six Sigma and operations research. I would like to know what are some of the recent mathematically challenging projects you have faced, and why has it been mathematically challenging from the supply chain, from the operations research side?
I can give you an example from a very recent project of ours. We are now working on an air cargo revenue management system, which is long overdue, but very soon we will implement this soon. Of course, this is an optimization problem, and it's on the background. There's a lot of mathematics in it, and we have a big team working on it, and we are using all the latest technologies. But there are obvious challenges, just like you said, because this is related to several fields in our business, like being demand forecasting. It starts maybe with demand forecasting, which is an extremely challenging job, and it has also a lot of mathematical calculation requirements behind, and it's difficult. It needs to improve in time, and this is something that we are going to only see when we start implementing this project. So we have to optimize various fields to provide a much more dynamic pricing in a much more timely manner. And these are several optimization problems working behind that needs to be improved, and that needs to provide a much better service than what we have today, much quicker, let's put it that way. It's possible, the technology is there, but we have to work hard on it, and this is something we are doing. This one project I can give you as an example. Apart from that, I need to think a little bit more. I'm not the expert in the field. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. A big round of applause to my fellow panelists. Difficult session just before lunch when we are hungry. So over to the MC.
And I must say it was a very difficult question. Yeah, because all of us must have forgotten the mathematics very comfortably sitting on the panel here. But good one. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's once again hear it for our absolutely wonderful moderator. He has been supporting us from the beginning. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Mr. Satish Lakkaraju. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.